Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're doing great. This is called Rome's Mountain of Ancient Garbage. I don't know what this is going to be like. I think this is going to talk about maybe like a dump scenario or like a garbage, I don't know, yard. I'm not sure how we're going to look at this. Toldinstone, let's jump right into it. Let's go.
The ancient world's largest garbage dump was located on the outskirts of Rome. As tall as the Pantheon, it towered over the concrete labyrinth of the warehouse district, Monte Testaccio, the Mountain of Pots.
Mountain of Pots.
As the name suggests, it consisted entirely of broken pottery, by one estimate, 53 million amphorae. Almost all of these amphorae held olive oil. Perhaps a tenth were imported from the rich olive groves of North Africa, but the vast majority came from Spain, more specifically from the province of Baetica, modern Andalusia. The Spanish oil amphorae were huge, heavy vessels, capable of holding about 70 liters, 18.5 gallons.
So, just a pottery dump?
From the 1st to the 3rd centuries AD, tens of thousands were shipped to Rome every year, emptied into holding vats, and smashed on Monte Testaccio. Let's imagine the journey of a single batch of amphorae from Spain to Rome at the end of the 2nd century.
Okay.
The long civil war that made Septimius Severus master of the Roman world has finally ended. Just a few years ago, the new emperor ceremoniously rode his horse over the naked corpse of his last remaining rival. With peace has come renewed prosperity. Along Spain's Guadalquivir River, demand for olive oil is booming as never before. Our story starts on one of the many estates that checkered the fertile valley between Seville and
Yeah, dang. You need some help. A ton. Imagine having to do all of that.
Cordoba. It belongs to an absentee landlord, a man of equestrian rank who prefers his comfortable frescoed townhouse in Cordoba to the villas scattered across his rural properties. This particular estate, located among rolling hills a short distance from the river, is almost entirely planted with olive trees. The groves are worked by both free and slave laborers. Although the slaves lived in cramped quarters near the main villa, and the tenant farmers have houses of their own, they do much the same work, eat the same simple foods, and celebrate the same festivals. Slave or free, the workers on the estate spend most of the year maintaining.
So this isn't just going to be a story about the mountain of ancient garbage. This is also going to talk about like where that stuff that was on that mountain originated from and what that culture looked like.
The olive groves, cutting down weeds, and plowing the land between the trees to aerate the soil. The busiest months are November and December. This is the wettest time of the year, when rainstorms break over the hills and fill the river. But it is also the season when the olives ripen and fall into the rain-pocked mud.
See, I don't know anything about olives, so I wouldn't know that. Would not have known
On a
that.
cool, clear morning, the olives are gathered, washed, and dumped into a trough, where a mule-driven millstone crushes them into a paste. The paste is shoveled into baskets, which are stacked beneath a press, a heavy beam lowered with a winch.
I see. I'm learning how to make olive oil on top of this. This is just perfect.
As the beam is brought down, and the wicker of the baskets creaks and snaps, golden olive oil drips to the ground. Once the oil has settled and separated, it is decanted into amphorae. For this year's batch, several hundred amphorae have been made at the local clay pit, each stamped with the estate owner's name before being fired in a large kiln. Even empty, the amphorae are too heavy to handle easily. When full, they have to be moved on muleback. The amphorae are brought to storage depots near the banks of the river. Months pass. Then, in April or May, a merchant sails down from Cordoba with a purchase contract signed by the estate owner. and the amphorae are loaded into the hold, joining hundreds of others from estates upstream. So
Interesting.
heavily laden that its keel scrapes a few sandbars, the ship
Wow.
floats downstream to the sea.
It's like a barge.
Like most ancient vessels, it stays near the coast, close enough for the sailors to see the red roofs of port cities and smell the reek of garum factories. 22 days after leaving Spain, the ship sails into Portus. Over the past century, this
Goodness.
artificial harbor has definitively displaced the older facilities at Puteoli and neighboring Ostia. The outer basin, with its smoking lighthouse, is crowded with ships. Our ship pauses to pick up a harbor pilot who guides it into the hexagonal inner basin. Moments after, it noses into a berth.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, people. Alright. Just started sneezing for some reason.
Portus. Over the past century, this artificial harbor has definitively displaced the older facilities at Puteoli and neighboring Ostia. The outer basin, with its smoking lighthouse, is crowded with ships.
Similar build to Carthage's harbor.
Our ship pauses to pick up a harbor pilot who guides it into the hexagonal inner basin. Moments after, it noses into a berth. Customs officials descend upon the decks, demanding to see the captain's contracts and inspect his cargo.
Okay, so you got customs.
After the usual rigmarole, members of the Stevedores Guild, stripped to their loincloths, begin to use pulleys and treadwheel cranes to lift the 2,000 amphorae in the ship's hold onto wagons. As these are filled, they shuttle the amphorae into a vast concrete warehouse perfumed with oil. This warehouse belongs to the emperor, as does everything inside. Olive oil is a staple of the Roman diet, a vital source of protein and fat for the multitudes who live primarily on bread. At Rome, the price of olive oil, like that of grain, has been controlled by the emperors since the time of Augustus, and oil has occasionally been included in the grain dole. Recently, Septimius Severus decreed that all citizens eligible for a grain ration should also receive olive oil every month. The merchant who brought the amphorae from Cordoba is under contract with the imperial government to supply oil at a fixed rate. He has spent most of his career dealing with the subordinates of the Praefectus Annoni, the official responsible for overseeing both the grain dole and the olive oil supply.
It's really cool to kind of see like one of the first instances in the economics of like a state-controlled industry. Obviously, you'll have things like that show up in more modern time, like Soviet Russia, or even Soviet China, and well, not Soviet China, sorry, Communist China, up until past the revolution. But it's just so cool to kind of like see a lot of these origin stories here. There's probably something that even predates the Roman the Roman Empire in this case, but if there is, let me know, because if not, this is like the origin of that.
Then, at last, the amphorae began.
I guess Egypt would be, yeah.
The final leg of their journey. Sprawling though the warehouses at Portus are, they are only meant to shelter goods for a brief time until they can be brought up the Tiber to the capital. The amphorae, their handles lashed together for security, are loaded onto a dozen barges.
So I'm guessing there might be a queue, you know, because there's so many ships. It's like you get put in a queue, you're like number 3. Once this barge goes and comes back, they're going to get this, and then they'll come back, they're going to get yours. It's got to be that way.
To cope with the current, which makes it difficult to row upstream, each barge is hitched to a team of mules who patiently tow it the 20 miles to Rome. It takes 3 days, partly because the mule teams have to be switched every few miles, and partly because the river is so crowded with barges and boats of every description, all straining to reach the center of the world. Before we follow the amphorae to their destination, a brief word about this video's sponsor. The first stumbles team Rome to a team returning to our topic. As the barges carrying the amphorae approach Rome, river traffic slows to a crawl. Towering tombs and villas crowd the banks. At last, the metropolis comes into view.
I wonder what would be the tallest structure, the Colosseum or something else, maybe something on Palatine Hill. I don't know.
An incomprehensible accumulation of white and tan buildings, shrouded by the smoke of 10,000 charcoal fires. Where the current slows, just below the temples and tenements of the Aventine Hill, a tangle of piers marks the port of Rome. Around it sprawl the warehouses that hold oil, grain, marble, wood, and everything else consumed by the world city. The barges are unloaded into one of these warehouse complexes. After the stamps and inscriptions on each amphora have been recorded and checked, the seals are broken and the oil within is tipped into cavernous storage tanks. In Rome, many amphorae are recycled as storage containers, repurposed as pipes or flower pots, or shattered and mixed into concrete as aggregate.
That's cool. And that's really cool that he's like holding some of that.
The amphorae that carry olive oil from Spain, however, are not reused. Their bulbous shape and thick walls make them unsuitable for most secondary applications. They are
Could you recycle them then?
difficult to break into small fragments, and the oil that clings to their surfaces weakens any concrete made with them. Last but not least, they stink. So, once they have been drained, Spanish oil amphorae are tied in pairs over the backs of mules
They could have recycled.
and sent to the state amphora dump, the future Monte Testaccio. The dump is already as tall as the Seven Hills, and it's growing every day. Although the lower slopes are overgrown with grass, most of the mound is the chalky red of broken pottery. One access road winds to the top, another twists back down. Both paths are crowded with mules and drivers. Near the top of the hill, slaves with sledgehammers smash pots into hand-sized pieces. Other slaves rake the fragments into even layers and sprinkle them with lime to cut the stench of rancid oil. As they descend the long path down to the warehouses, the drivers have a spectacular view of Rome, radiating
That's really cool.
in every direction. But the mules, heads down, see only the reddish dust that coats the path and bits of pottery crunching beneath their hooves. Dumping continued at Monte Testaccio until the late 3rd century, when the construction of the
I see it. It's in the bottom left.
Aurelian Wall cut the roads between the dump and the river. As the empire collapsed and the city of Rome contracted, the mountain of pots remained. Medieval legends sprang up around it, some claiming that it had been built with rubble from the Great Fire of Nero, others that it was composed of pagan cinerary urns. The most prevalent explanation, however, was that the hill was made of vessels sent to the emperors as tribute from the provinces. In a sense, this was correct. Monte Testaccio is a microcosm of the Roman Empire. It reflects the reach of imperial power, which could draw millions of oil amphorae from distant parts of the Mediterranean. It attests to the productivity and complexity of the Roman economy, which could support long-distance trade on such a vast scale. It is evidence of consumerism that would not be excelled until the Industrial Revolution, and it bears witness to the inequality and exploitation that made Rome's grandeur possible. Last month, with the help
Oh,
of
I thought that was it. Oh my god, we got more.
my friends at Through Eternity Tours, who often organize walks in the area, I visited Monte Testaccio for the first time in years. Though surrounded by a bustling and
Whoa, that's
increasingly
huge.
trendy neighborhood, the hill itself is quiet. Knee-high grass and clumps of shrubs cover most of its surface, but along the paths, and wherever erosion has cut the surface, you can see the broken pots. In
Look how many layers that is right there.
places, the fragments are still stacked as neatly as they were 17 centuries ago, when the Roman emperors built the largest garbage dump in ancient history.
Wow. Wow.
My new
That's awesome. Why couldn't they recycled it? Was it just too much economically? Were they that capitalistic? Capitalistic. Um, guys, and out to the stars. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Bye bye.